Leatherhard slab box. And I have some samples of the box out here for you guys to see. Your basic requirements for this assignment is that you make a box that is where the compartment of the box, or the part where you put stuff, is 7 inches by 5 inches by 3 inches. Now that's my basic requirement. If you want to do something else after watching this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to make your own templates and all that kind of stuff, you can, but this is sort of the standard. Other requirements are that you need to have legs or feet on the box. You also may not use words or symbols on the box.
Wow.
No words or symbols. You guys are going to find that's a theme from now on. No words or symbols. And the slabs must be leather hard upon construction. Also, I've got listed 6 decorative techniques down here. You have to use 2. So I'm going to show you all 6, and then you can use any 2 that you like on your box, okay? All right, so due date for this assignment, I don't have my planner in front of me, but it's 3 weeks. So 3 weeks from today is basically going to be the last day in class that we're working on this assignment. I'll get back to you on that date when I get my planner in front of me. Okay, so let's talk about the template. Now, this year, we've had some weird stuff happen, like polar vortexes and stuff like that. So normally, I really like you guys to make your own templates, because I think it's a good experience to figure out how this works 3-dimensionally. But because we've had a polar vortex and my seniors are going to miss an additional 3 days in addition to the week at the end, here's what I'm going to do this year. I am going to give you the standard templates already cut, so you don't have to cut them if you do the standard size. If you want to make your own templates, you can if you're going to do anything different in terms of size, okay? Now, the reason you want to have a template is, as you're making these slabs, what happens to clay as it dries?
Shrinks.
It shrinks, right? So what I have seen students do is make a slab and then something happens and they forget to cover it or something like that, and it dries out and they have to make another one, right? So when they have to make another one, I have seen them take the greenware slab and put that down on the clay and then try to trace it thinking it's going to work. But it doesn't work because the greenware one has already shrunk. And so when you go to put the whole box together, that one piece that you have is going to be too small. So you want to have like a paper or a cardboard template or something when you're working with slabs, so that if you need to make another one, that you have it handy. And then if you have the cardboard doesn't shrink, so you'll have that handy and you can just trace it. Okay, so if you're making your, and I'm going to show you how I make these templates because you still need to understand it, okay? So with the cardboard, and if you're going to make your own template, any cardboard will do. This is pizza box. It could be any cardboard that's this thickness. I like to bring in cereal boxes, pizza boxes, things like that. What you're going to do is you're going to open it on the seams like this. And the reason you open it on the seams is because it's machine made. It already has like a nice 90-degree angle already started for you for that first corner of your template. So the first template I'm going to make is going to be my 7 by 5 template, which is going to act as the top and the bottom of the box. Okay? So the first template size is 7 by 5. Or 5 by 7. Same thing, right? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that, not the edge of the box because it's, you know, kind of irregular, but I'm going to use the edge of that corner, and I'm going to make my first mark at 5, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my ruler up, and I'm going to make a second mark at 5. The reason I make those 2 marks, as you guys hopefully remember from the cups, is what? Why am I making 2 marks?
So
I can make my line straight. So I connect my dots, and now I know I have a perfectly, 5-inch parallel line there. I'm going to do the same thing from this seam. And I'm going to make 2 marks go at 7. Line up my marks. And then I have my 7 by 5 template, which I can just use the scissors to cut out. Alright, now here's where things get tricky. That was the easy one. This is why it's important to know as you're continuing to build. The sides of the box, when you put the piece together, and you guys know how to use scissors, so that's enough of that. the box together. And here are my pieces already made, my Leatherhard pieces. And this is my 5x7 slab. And these are some of my side pieces. When I put this together though, and I stack this up, I want you to see that as I set this there, this piece is a little bit short. You guys see that? Do you know why?
So you can add on or reset.
Right, because when you're dealing with something three-dimensional, you have to account for the thickness of the slab. So the thickness of the slab is 1/4 of an inch. So you want to leave the sides a 1/4 of an inch shy so that when I go to put the next one on, it kind of fills in the rest of that wall. So that being said, what would the size of this slab be? Knowing, the given is that my height is going to be 3 inches. And this side is 7. 6 3/4. So your second slab is going to be 6 3/4 by 3. Or your second template. 6 3/4 by 3. Because 3 is my height. And these are the generic ones. So if you want to make a taller one, you can make your own template, make it different size. But these are the ones I'm going to have available. And does somebody else want a gold star for the day to tell me what this one's going to be, given that this side is 5 and my height is going to remain the same? 4 3/4 by... What's my height? 3. Yeah, 4 3/4 by 3. Good. So those are the 3 template sizes that you need to have. Okay, let me stick these away here again for a second. And then we're going to roll a slab. Okay. All right, so when you're rolling the slab, and I actually picked out some clay that was a little bit harder, and instead of putting it in the reclaim bucket, I decided to use it. And the reason is because these things have to get to Leatherhard anyway. So if I can persevere the part where I have to make a slab with something that's a little bit stiffer, it becomes a little bit quicker to have them dry out. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a wedge. And then I want to take the time to kind of smooth out these ridges and stuff, because if I go to roll a slab with a piece of clay that has all those ridges, when I go to roll the slab, it's going to crack and it's going to spread open on the edges, which means you can't use as much of the slab as you'd like. As far as physical demand of this project, rolling the slab is probably the most physically demanding. And I know it's first period. Standing up to roll a slab and all that stuff is not desirable, so we want to roll the slab as few times as necessary. We don't want to roll the slab a whole bunch of times. Like, you don't want to have to roll a slab for every single piece you've got to cut. Has anybody in here ever made like sugar cookies with cookie cutters? It's kind of like that. Okay, hold on. You got the camera? I got to get this one going, so I got to get a little aggressive there. So here it's splitting because I didn't get that spot blended together. That's what I was talking about. So I want to roll a slab as big as possible. Another tool you can use for this, if you're having the splitting, is the rib tool. Kind of get those blended together. So that you can get as many pieces out of it as possible. You will probably have to roll more than one slab. But you really could get all the pieces for the box made out of 2 slabs if you do them nice and large. So remember, when I roll a slab, I'm going to continue to flip the clay over and hopefully move it to a dry spot. The other advantage of picking out clay that's a little bit harder is that it doesn't stick to the canvas as easily. It's just, I might be a little tired after I'm done rolling the slab. That's all. Alright, if when you're rolling slabs you see the air pockets, they will look like little blisters appearing on the surface. So if you didn't get all the air pockets out when you were wedging, take your pin tool and pop those little blisters before you continue to roll. So if I see a little blister coming up here, I'll take my pin tool, pop it a couple of times, and then keep rolling to seal that up. And then I can just take my finger and blend it too. All right, so I'm probably about to 1/4 inch here, and I got a pretty decent sized slab. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those cardboard templates that I cut out, and I am going to do my best to get as many pieces out of this as I can. So you only need one cardboard template of each size, right? Only one of each. But, and you may want to write this down kind of by your slabs, how many of these you're going to need in clay. For the 5x7, in clay you're going to need 2. There's only one template, but you need 2 in clay. For the other 2 templates, you're going to need 4 each. Okay. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to place these as close to the edge as possible because I want to get as many as possible out of it. And then I'm going to use my pin tool and just cut out the slabs that I need. Now the reason I like this gauge or thickness of cardboard is because it doesn't buckle on me. It's thin enough I can cut it with scissors, and it's thick enough that it doesn't buckle on me when I'm trying to trace it. I also like to use the line I just created for my next one. There's no reason I need to have a space in between. I can get them this close, and that way I can get them as many made as possible. So it's kind of like a puzzle. You're trying to figure out how to get as many as you can. Maybe I'll do this one here to get another one. Maybe it would be smarter if I moved it over. Not sure, not sure. I like this idea better. So that's the idea. So that way you don't have to roll a whole bunch of slabs. And then, am I going to get lucky here? Ooh, look at that. But I want to do this one. Makes more sense. Yeah. Okay. So now out of this one slab, I already got my top and my bottom made, and I've got 2 sides. I can probably get all of my sides, all 4 of these, right? And then maybe even one of these, and then I just have to roll a slab for 3 more of these. So it can be done within 2 slabs, if you're clever. Okay, so we are going to put these off to the side, and here's the trick now. You have to, and this is why this project is so challenging, you will have to let these dry to Leatherhard. So, how do you know if something's Leatherhard? Here's a really good test. If you can, and I'll do the smaller one because I have a small one here. If you can hold it out like this, and it stays out straight, it's Leatherhard. If it is not Leatherhard, it will do this. And I have students come to me all the time and say, Miss Felix, is this Leatherhard? They're like trying to hold it up straight so it doesn't flop over. The answer is no. You have to be able to hold it out like this, and if it doesn't flop, then you're good to go. If you construct the piece when they're not Leatherhard yet, your box will look sunken and saggy, so you need to wait till it's Leatherhard. Okay, here we go. Let's put the box together. Here's where things get a little bit crazy. This project is challenging to put together because it is all scoring, slipping, and scooching. That is right. So there is no looting with Leatherhard because every time you're putting together something Leatherhard, it has to be scored and slipped. So this project is a real test to how well you can score and slip and how well you can control the drawing because you want the pieces to be Leatherhard but not too hard. Okay? So when I put the first piece on, I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to score and slip. Now the first time I score and slip for this demonstration, I'm going to do it really well because I want you to see how you need to do it for each seam. It takes a little bit longer to score and slip like this, so I'm not going to score and slip every seam like this. I'm going to do one of those things where I tell you to do what I say and not what I do. Because it would take me too long, it would take me 2 days to demonstrate this box if I scored and slipped each seam as well as I needed to. So what I'm trying to do as I'm scoring this is I'm trying to kick up these little crumbs of clay called nards. Now, they might annoy you and you may be tempted to brush them away when they're kicking up, but don't, because you need them. When you add water to those... Hi.
Anne-Marie.
Oh, Annie?
Anne-Marie.
Yeah, is it urgent?
Yeah, well, she's got to go, and then she's got to go.
She's not here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's got to go. Anne-Marie.
Okay. Do I take my stuff? Might as well.
If you want to.
Okay. Hopefully you can watch this video on YouTube later, Annie. Okay, so I'm going to score and slip and let those nards get kicked up. And I want them to stay there as much as possible because when I add the water to them, those are the little things that are going to melt and turn into slip. Okay? So I want you to notice that as I'm scoring and slipping, I am going from edge to edge. I'm not just doing the little center part. I went all the way from edge to edge, both directions, so that I got a good score and slip on that. Okay? All right, now, you my sponge. Have I showed you this trick about how to direct the water?
With one finger?
Yep. So if I want to direct my water and I hold my sponge in my hand and I keep one finger a little bit lower, I get a little control and I can let the water drip. And then those little nards are going to melt. And then when I put it on, what am I going to do?
Scoochy.
Hey, all right. Who wants to help me this morning? Scoochy, 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 scoochy. Oh, so disappointing.
Good job.
Okay. Got one person. Gold star for you.
Hey, I did it too.
I know. Oh, I know. I said for you.
And so did she.
Oh, you guys both
So
get
you
gold
got
stars. Okay. So when I did my scoochy scoochy there, all the slip squished out the sides. You want to see that slip squish out the sides. If you don't, it probably is not attached well enough. Then I can just kind of wipe it away on the inside and the outside, and you're good to go. That right there is like pretty strong glue if you do it that well. Okay? Now, for the rest of these, I'm going to get a little sloppy because I'm going to do them fast. I just want to show you the basic how to put the piece together. So score and slip like this, not like what I'm about to do. All right, so when I go to score and slip, the rest of the box, I've got to think about each side that touches has to be scored and slipped. So I need to score and slip this side, I need to score and slip this side, I need to score and slip this side because it's going to touch here, and then I need to score and slip this side. This will stay together for this period, but if I leave it to dry to greenware by tomorrow, it'll probably be falling apart. All right, now, here's the cool thing about clay, I think. What happens, and this can happen because if your slabs aren't a perfect uniform thickness, you might run out of space for your next slab. So what do you do if you need to like cut the piece down a little bit?
You cut it down a little bit.
You do. And the best tool to cut it down a little bit with is the rib tool. If you use the smooth side of the rib tool, it slices really nicely and a little bit of a layer at a time. Do be careful when you're doing it though, because it can really, it's sharper than you think and it can really gouge into the slab. So when I'm cutting off pieces with this rib tool, like I said, I just shave it almost like a little bit at a time until I feel like my next wall is going to fit on there. Okay? That's why I like working with clay versus working with wood, because if you work with wood and you don't make your cut exactly right, you've got to do it all over again. Clay is a little bit more forgiving, and so if it doesn't look perfect, like a perfect match, you can fix it. Okay, stick that sucker on there.
Yeah.
And you'll notice I'm doing long side, short side, long side, short side. Okay? That's how I'm putting it together. It is a stronger construction to do long side, short side because you stair step your seams. Now I got to score and slip this side, and this side, and this side, and this side, and this side. So you know, like when you're packing like a cardboard box, and you have to fold the lid, you like run out of tape to seal it shut, so you have to fold the lid in a certain way so that the lid will stay shut. That works, you know, because you're stair-stepping, you're doing every other one. So this is kind of the same principle in terms of strength if you work your way around short side, long side, short side, long side. Okay, so there we go. I got the body or the main compartment of the box constructed. Now I'll put the top, or actually, who knows, it might end up being the bottom, but this is the compartment that's going to hold stuff. Score and slip along the top here. So if you didn't answer it, when you score and slip, how do you know you get a good connection at the seam? How do you guys know?
The slip comes out.
This, you see the slip squish out, yeah. What should you do if you don't see the slip squish out? You could squeeze it tighter until the slip does come out, but if it doesn't and you can't make the slip squish out, you should actually take the wall off and put it back, re-score and slip and put it back on. I know it seems like a headache, but it is much easier to do at that stage than after you've got the whole rest of the box put together and it starts falling apart. So if you don't get that slip squishing out, take the wall off and redo it. Alright, so the next one is, how do you fix the box if the sides are uneven? Here we go. So I put all my pieces together, and like I said, you know, it might not be completely perfect. I have some like rough edges and stuff like that. The best way to fix these kind of rough edges is with your rib tool. If you take the rough side of the rib tool first, and you kind of scrape off the high points, or the parts that are sticking out, and you can do this over the entire box, and you get it nice and level, then you can flip that tool around and use the smooth side of the rib to get rid of some of those scratch marks. And then last but not least, kind of just give it, I maybe even gave it too much water, a little bit of water, and smooth it out with your finger. So you can get the whole side looking pretty good, even if it looks rough when you first put it together. Okay? Do be aware though that if you see, I want to show you my first score and slip that was good. I don't see the crack at all because the slip squished out and it filled the seam. But on the one on the top where I did a bad job, I can still see the crack, I can still see the seam. That's also an indication that it's not a good joint. Okay, so watch out for that. If you see that, that's not good. Okay, now I'm going to put the legs on, and then I'm going to show you the decorative techniques. Okay, so as I'm doing this, let's answer some of the questions on the back side. How should you wrap your slabs so they can get leather hard?
Loosely.
You want to wrap them loosely, but here's where the challenge is. And I know you guys are limited on space in your lockers, and so students have a tendency to stack them all on top of each other. And if you do that, they're all going to stay, well, they're going to, no, they'll be okay, but the ones underneath will stay wet and the one on top will dry. So as little stacking as you can do as possible is ideal. The other thing to consider is that the bats you have to work with are round and your lockers are square. So sometimes because the slabs, you know, will fit better, it's a better idea to just put them directly on the bottom of your locker and not use a bat. Just kind of lay them out. You could put a dry paper towel underneath the slabs so they don't stick. But basically, to make a long answer short, the answer is to wrap them loosely and don't stack them. You might have to stack them a little bit, but don't just make one big stack because they'll never dry. I shouldn't say never, but it'll take a long time. and then you'll be sitting here twiddling your thumbs, waiting for your slabs to dry and not be able to do anything. You want all the time you can get for construction and design on this. So I was able to make these slabs and have them dry out in one night. You guys, it might take a couple of days, but I would try to have all my slabs made and leather hard within that first 2 days of the project. Okay, got that? All right, how should you wrap them once they are leather hard? That's the next question. Once they are leather hard, what did you say?
Tighter.
Definitely tighter. You're going to wrap them tighter in a plastic bag, and actually, when they're leather hard, then you should stack them. As soon as they're leather hard, you should go ahead and stack them on top of each other, because you don't need them to dry anymore. You just need them to stay the same, and they'll take up less space in your locker. How should you, and then the next question is, how should you wrap the box while you're working on it? Like the box itself. It's already leather hard. Do you want it to get more hard?
No, so
No.
wrap it more tight.
So you want to wrap it more tight. You want to wrap it tightly, and actually you want to always spray it with the spray bottle. And the reason you always want to spray it with the spray bottle is because the plastic bag is not going to want to stick to the sides of the piece unless it's a little wet and sticky. And if you have air in between the bag and the piece, that is air that can cause it to dry. So you're trying to get that plastic bag to stick to it as much as possible. All right, you guys might have noticed I have a whole bunch of slabs here, and that's only because I'm doing this demonstration again in the next period. I'm actually on my last slab right now.
Yeah, you forgot us. Oh, never mind.
I'm working on it. Thank you. That's good. I'm glad you caught that. There's it. Also, if you forget to score and slip a seam and then you put it all together and you realize you forgot, you should take the wall off and you should redo it. Because no matter how hard you push on that thing, it is not going to stick unless you scored and slipped. Little scoochy. And what I do with my scoochy on these seams, and I didn't score and slip well enough, but if I'm trying to scoochy this, what I do is I hold this one in place, and then I run my finger along this edge just to compress it and make it nice and tight against there. So you can do that with all your seams. To get that scoochy. Okay, so here's the box. This part becomes the top or the compartment, and this part here becomes the legs of the box. So once you have your box constructed, and yes, I would take the time to smooth out all the sides and make it nice before I start my designs, but once you've constructed it, there's a certain order that I highly recommend, and this is how it goes. First, you should cut the lid. And the reason you should cut the lid first is because if you never cut the lid off, you lose all function, for one, and for two, I won't fire it because you've just created a kiln bomb. It's a huge air pocket. You need to have the lid cut off for it to be fired at all, right? So it might take you some figuring where you're going to cut the lid, but that should be your first mission, is to get that lid cut off, okay? Second, finish all your design work. So like I said, you may have to sketch it out lightly so you know where to cut the lid, but don't like design intricately first. Last. I said last 3 times because it's important. Cut the legs. Okay, so I'm going to do a real quickie lid here just to get it cut off. And when you're cutting the lid, you can, and I very frequently have students break the pin tool because they try to do it in all one pass, which doesn't usually work. I've also seen students try to saw at the piece, which just leaves a rough edge. So what you should do instead is take several passes through the same line until you break through. If you feel like you're going to break your pin tool, you're going to break your pin tool. So stop doing that. It might take 3 or 4 passes through the same line to get that lid cut off. This is not pretty. Don't judge. Okay, so now I got my lid cut off, and I would take the time to smooth out this cut mark. Then I would do all my designs, and then I'm going to cut my legs. So let's talk about those designs. You have 6 options, you have to do 2. The first option is stamping, okay? My little spoiler, or my warning I should say, is that stamping is the hardest of all these techniques, because stamping needs to be done when the clay is plastic, and by the time your piece is constructed it's already leather hard. So you have to know, if you're going to use stamping, you have to know to stamp the clay before you cut your slabs out, which can be really difficult to put the piece together and not destroy your designs, right? So stamping is an option, but it's the most challenging. Stamping can be done with anything you press into the clay. It could be your shoe, it could be... Thank you. Okay. Can you pass this back to Amy? It can be your shoe, it can be a stamp that I have in class. This is like a meat tenderizer that has a cool pattern on it. I can use that. Anything you can find to press into the clay to make a embossment, sort of, is a stamp. Okay, so stamping is done with anything you can press in the clay with plastic. Plastic clay. The clay has to be plastic in order to do it. So that means you have to stamp before. Second one is incising. We've already done that. What does that mean, incising? Say it again.
You cut apart.
You don't actually cut it, you just draw in the surface. So you're making a mark, but you're not cutting all the way through. So incising just means drawing on the surface of the clay. There's my smiley face. Okay, so incising is drawing on the surface of clay. The best tools to use for incising are what? Bless you. A pencil or a wood tool. Do not use your pin tool, right? And your clay should be leather hard. Okay, so incising done with a pencil or a wood tool, and when the clay is leather hard, in the leather hard stage. The next technique is carving. Carving is done with this tool, and this tool here is called the loop tool. L-O-O-P, probably because it's got this little loop on the end. Carving should also be done in leather hard. So if I wanted to carve out, oops, I got my lid on backwards. Some kind of pattern. The loop tools usually have one round end and one square end. You can kind of play with that, but it's kind of removing just a layer of clay. So I can get some carving marks in there. Next one is piercing. This is a new one. Piercing basically means you are poking a hole through it. Just like if you pierce your ear or your nose or your neck or whatever other weird stuff people pierce, right? Piercing just means you're poking a hole through it, okay? So if you're going to pierce your box and make holes in it, you're going to use your pin tool, and you're going to do it when it's leather hard. The reason you want to wait till it's leather hard, because if you do it when it's soft and you do something intricate or lacy, the whole piece, it loses strength, it can fall apart. Burnishing, we've done that before. What do we use for burnishing? Yep, the spoon. This is Maria Martinez again, right? This is kind of the polishing. So we just use, instead of a river rock, like Maria does, we use the back of a spoon. It is also done when the clay is leather hard. Now, I like to call this my cop-out technique because if you're designing something and you really don't want that second technique, you just want the rest to be smooth, burnishing is a really nice option because all it really does is smooth that clay out when you use the back of the spoon. So you can almost kind of see a shine to it when I burnish. Ooh, burnishy. And then what else? What else? Relief sculpture. Okay, relief sculpture is sculpture that pops out from a flat background. So again, when you're doing relief sculpture, you do not want to sculpt something over here and then score and slip and try to attach it. You want to sculpt off the form. So let's say I wanted to do polka dots, and I wanted to do some that were pierced and some that popped out. What I would do is I would, because I don't need this part. Can you see if I put it here? Can you see okay? Okay. I would score and slip the area where I wanted to add clay. And then I would take a little piece of clay, and when I say little, I mean as little as possible, because we don't want things to add weight to the box. And then I would press that in and start sculpting it and trying to make it look like a polka dot right there on the form, not separate and then added, because that can trap air pockets. Okay? So relief sculpture is added when the box is leather hard and the clay is plastic, or the sculpture part that you add to it is plastic. Couple tips on relief sculpture, which I've said before below. Do not add flat to flat. So if I'm doing the polka dot, the wrong way to do it, like I said, is to go ahead and make your polka dot over here, cut it out of a flat slab, score and slip, and stick it on. Number one, it's got weird square edges instead of being round. And number two, you're likely to trap air pockets. Number two says always be sure to score and slip the clay, leather hard clay, before you are attaching anything to it. Number three is add as little clay as possible to create shallow relief. The example I always like to give is a coin in your pocket. It's got really high amount of detail, but it's really, really thin and it's really lightweight. So things do not have to pop out from something really far in order to have a high amount of detail. And then last but not least, if you do want high relief, let's say I am going to decide that I'm going to make a knob on my box, and I want it to be, and I'm not going to take my time to make this look pretty, so let's all use our imagination this morning. Let's say I'm going to make a cupcake. That's my cupcake. Okay, and I'm gonna score and slip and attach a cupcake, but I want that to be a knob. If you do high relief like this is shallow relief, this is high relief. If I do high relief, you need to hollow it out. So I would, before I put this on, need to hollow out the inside so nothing was thicker than, like 1/4 of an inch. So I would scoop into there, hollow it out, then I would score and slip and attach it. So high relief, sometimes you do you sculpt separately and then attach. And then you also need to create an air vent. So I just created an air pocket by hollowing that out and attaching it. So from underneath the lid here, I'd have to poke a hole to have the steam, when I put it in the kiln, that would be a release so that the steam doesn't cause your cupcake to blow up. Okay? So you want to hollow it out and add an air vent if you do high relief. Okay? All right, now let's talk, because I have some time left, I do want to talk about a couple of problems you may encounter and a couple things to consider in terms of design. Can you hand me that box right there? This is a really nice box, a little bit dusty perhaps, but really nice and very, very simple. It's probably burnishing and incising. This fulfills my requirements, right? Can be very simple. Here's one thing that the student didn't consider when they were making it. When they cut the lid, and oh, it looks like it broke now. When they cut the lid, what they did that was really smart design-wise is they considered, and this is what I'm really going to push you guys to do, they considered how the cut of the lid fit in with the design, because they used one of their designs as the lid cut. Very, very smart. Unfortunately, they cut the lid down so low that there's just as much lid as there is compartment to put stuff in. So although the form is A+ because they used their design, the function loses a little bit because there's not as big of a space here to put things in. There's too much lid, okay? So you want to think about your placement of where you're going to cut the lid. This one here, no, this one doesn't. So this one here is kind of the opposite. This one here, the student cut it plenty high, so they have a lot more compartment to their box, which is good, but their cut to their lid is sort of generic. It really does not fit in with the design at all. It looks sort of last minute thought out, okay? This one is probably a little more obvious that things went wrong. In this situation, this student didn't do their planning on paper well enough beforehand, and then they just decided, well, I'm going to cut the lid, and they didn't understand what they were doing was making an undercut. So this is where I said it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. When you put together a jigsaw puzzle, it's designed with holes like this and pieces that snap into place, and it won't pull apart. For a jigsaw puzzle, that's really good because you don't want it to fall apart when you're working on it. For a box with a lid, that's kind of bad because you want to take the lid off. So the choice that she made, and these almost look exactly like a jigsaw puzzle, with this box was to cut it like this, and when she went to take the lid off, this piece of clay underneath grabbed hold and the entire piece, all these pieces started breaking off. Then she finally broke through and she's like, yes, I got the lid off. And then she went to put it back on, and it doesn't fit back on either. That's probably why I am still the owner of this box, because she was pretty disappointed. But I will say, hopefully we can learn from her mistakes. So I'm really going to push you guys to complete that part of the drawing and show me your lid cut choice so that I can make sure it fits in with form and function and that you don't have any undercuts. Okay? Last but not least is the legs of the box. And so all you're going to do for the legs is you are going to, again, cut them out. So, and these are not going to be pretty, but all I'm going to do is cut out sections from that lower part. And then I'll have my legs to my box. Now, like I said, the standard leg size, I just did it so that you have one template, is 3 inches in height, and the compartment of the box is 3 inches. If you want to make legs that are not so tall and you want to make 1-inch legs or something like that, that's fine. You just have to make another template for yourself. Okay, so then that's the legs. I also want you to consider, you guys have the sunflower box down there? I want you to put some consideration into your choice as to how you cut the legs. My demonstration here is just to show you how it's done. But this leg design is really smart because she used the sunflowers and then she used the center of the sunflower for her choice as to where to cut the legs. It wasn't random. I wish she would have given the same consideration to the lid because the lid cut does kind of go through her design and I think it could have been more well thought out. Still a nice piece, but you can see how the legs were really well thought out and the lid wasn't quite as much because it goes right through her flowers, okay? So, did I get all the questions answered for you guys on your worksheet? Does anybody need me to repeat any? Yes? Number 4. When you know that you scored and slipped, you got a good connection of the seam? Is that the one, Andrew? Oh, on the back side. The last one. If you want high relief, you must hollow out the form and create an air vent. You must hollow and create an air vent. Does anybody else have questions?
The last one on the first page?
The last one on the first page. How can you fix the side of the box if the pieces are uneven? Yeah, use the rough side and then the smooth side of the rib tool. That's right.
Do I hit the right button?
Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be planning out.